Hi, I'm Sharon Knight, and I am President and CEO of Hope Communities. I hope that you all had a really great weekend. It was gorgeous out, so I was able to get out and do a long walk a couple of days, and it was just gorgeous for me. That is how I refresh and how I start to feel a lot better about the day and about the week. So I sure hope that you had a chance to get outside as well. So we are reaching out to you from Hope Communities. And if you are not sure what Hope Communities is, we are a nonprofit organization that provides housing, programs, resources, and educational activities to people across the city of Denver. We have apartments in East Colfax called Hidden Brook. We have the gardens in Northeast Park Hill, and Carrollton Arms and Welton Homes at the Point in Five Points. We have, since the beginning of our organization 40 years ago, focused not only on providing safe, family-friendly housing, but also on building community and building pathways to economic and personal opportunity for people. The building community part is really why we're reaching out during this platform and during this pandemic period. We know that people may be feeling isolated and alone, and we don't want anyone that we work with, anyone that we help, anyone that we work alongside to feel that way. And so we're going to reach out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3 o'clock just to check in with you to make sure you're okay. Each of our shows will provide a little bit of updated information about the virus, about the pandemic. We will give you some new ideas about resources that are available to you. Hopefully, we'll bring some insights and some inspiration into your homes. And we also want to provide an opportunity for you to ask us questions or to give us comments about the work that we're doing or something that we could do more that would help you out. This platform, this Facebook Live platform, allows for you to do comments. I can see that Gwen and Jamie have also found that section, but at the bottom of your page for Facebook, there should be an area for a chat. And if you could just sign in and let me know that you are here, that would be awesome. We'd like to get just some feedback from you during this session. If you have questions at all during the time that I'm talking or comment, feel free to add them in there. I will try to keep looking, and if I don't see right away, I will respond at a later point. You also can always ask questions or provide comments or let us know if you need a little extra help by sending an email to info@hopecommunities.org. So we really want to know if you need some assistance from us. That's a great way to do it. As a little extra benefit, any of our residents that sign in to the show or send us an email with a question or a comment the day of the show at info@hopecommunities.org, all of those people will be put into a drawing, and there is a donor that is going to support giving gift cards to someone who wins the drawing each day, because she believes that having this ability to check in and have real good communication back and forth between Hope and its residents is super important through this time. So don't forget, if you are a resident, to sign on now. You can also sign on later in the day or send us a question later in the day, and then we will pick a name and provide some kind of a outreach to you. We will find you if we have your name and maybe your apartment number, and then we can let you know if you got the gift card. So, we are living in an unprecedented time. There's so many things that we're being asked to do that we've never been asked before, and it can be frustrating, it can be humiliating, it can be really hard to deal with at sometimes. And so I think that this quote might be helpful to some of you. The quote is, "If life teaches you anything, It may be that it's necessary to suffer some defeats. Look at the diamond. It is a result of extreme pressure. Less pressure, it's a crystal. Less pressure than that, it's fossilized leaves or just plain dirt. Maya Angelou said that. So to me, that is hopeful. I mean, we are all going through a really strange time of learning new things. I mean, Facebook Live, doing a lot more with Zoom and other conference calls, trying to do Google Docs or trying to use Teams. There's lots of different platforms and apps that we're all learning about or learning more about. And it's not even age specific. So it's not that technology is tougher for people who are older than younger. Everyone is learning new things every day and trying on something in a way that they've never done before. And it's just true that we're going to mess up. And so we're going to have to realize that this is protocol for all of us now. We're all going to mess up and we're all going to have to live through that. So we also are bombarded by a constant flood of information right now. There's so many tidbits of news. Some of them are true, some of them are not true, and we've got to sort through all of that. And even if the information that we're getting is from experts, it's changing at an exponential rate. And so it's just hard to keep up with everything. And just about the time that you think you really got the latest information, something new happens. I mean, there were things from last Friday that I talked about that have already changed, for instance. And I'm really thrilled with some of the response that people and organizations have had to that rate of change. The CDC, the Center for Disease Control, is one of the sources of information that we've encouraged you to go to because they're always sharing new information about the virus and responses to it. So you can still go there. I check those things all the time. We try to sift through some organizationals, databases for you so that we can find out what's new, but we still encourage you to do some of that work yourself. This last Friday, I mentioned two things that were myths. One was about a group that was being discriminated against in relationship to the virus. And another was the fact that someone said that they got a citation because they were out past curfew. So those were myths, those were untruths. And I had reached out to the city and to a couple of other folks about that. And I was so impressed that the city of Denver's website has already captured those bits of information. They're already putting down a lot more details so that people know that is not true. So the city's website is a really great source of information for you. The state also has some good information. So feel free to wander through there. We will, as I said, try to capture some of the big points for you so that you know how this affects you day to day. So some of the things that I found out when I was looking at the city's website this weekend that I want to clarify for you is, the stay-at-home order really is to try to help stop the spread of the virus. Not all of us are as good as we can be with the social distancing, but it's really to help with that, to help us with social distancing. You still can go out of your homes, though. You still can do that when you are following appropriate guidelines. So please know that it's not that you can't ever get out of there. And in fact, they do encourage people to get outside for recreation, but just to continue to follow the social distancing guidelines so that we don't get too close to spread germs. I saw some of that on my walk this weekend. I did a couple of really long hikes. So one of the things that they have said is that you can be outside, but you can't socialize. So a lot of the parks, a lot of the playgrounds, a lot of the places where oftentimes there are group gatherings are closed for that type of gathering, but they're not closed for walks. And there are also police officers and safety officers who are there in those areas, and they are breaking up groups and they are encouraging people to follow the specific guidelines. I actually, in the course of one hike on Saturday, saw officers dispelling a group that was at a skate park. So a skate park is like a playground. Playgrounds are closed because kids are crawling all over the place and they like to be all together. So those are closed. Skate parks are too. So they are closed, and they will graciously, nicely ask people to move away from there. If people continue to violate the rule of congregating in those bigger groups, you could get a citation though. So you really want to be careful about that. And that again is just for public safety. It's not for anything else. So there's also some things that you need to know in terms of moving around town. There are some streets that are closed to car traffic. They're doing that, and they will be posted, of course, on the city's website and also as you get close to those streets. But they're doing that to give more room for individuals to walk around and be able to have that safe distance. So it's a real a benefit to us to have more space, especially in downtown, to walk around without fearing that we're going to get too close to other people. The parking meters are free right now, which is a plus if you have to get out. Of course, they are only asking people who have to do essential business or run essential businesses to be out. So there shouldn't be too much trouble finding a parking space. But the meters are free, except, and there won't be any citations, except if you violate parking in a handicap spot or an emergency spot and you don't have the appropriate permit. So they're looking for that, but they're not trying to give you any citations at all if you are parking without paying at a meter. There are no citations right now if you are out past curfew. We already know that one. And also if you are even if you are in groups, they're not going to give citations at first. So you just need to understand what they're going to be looking for. If you are driving any time of day and night, the police are not going to pull you across or aside to see if you are on essential business or not. They're not going to do that. If there's something that's a probable cause, yes, they may pull you over, and then they might ask you if there's something else going on, but they're not going to give any citations if you happen to be out. And if you do run an essential business, you don't necessarily have to have documentation at this time that you do. You just have to be able to communicate what you're doing and why you're doing it if by chance you're stopped. So if you just joined us, my name is Sharon Knight. I am President and CEO of Hope Communities, and we are just running this Facebook Live as a little check-in, so you have somebody that you know cares about you and wants to give you a chance to get information and give us information. So what is the stay-at-home order all about? It is simply for that social isolation for everyone who's not doing an essential business. So then you get to these two other levels. One is isolation. So what's the difference between stay at home, being in isolation, whether that's forced or self-isolation, and being in quarantine? So stay at home, you have the freedom of your house. You can be with your family. You can go out for essential business. And besides work, that might mean going for groceries, going to get medicine, things like on the weekend I took food to somebody who really couldn't get out. So those types of things you can do while you are on a stay-at-home order. Isolation is if you are already sick. Isolation is to separate sick folks from people who are not sick at this point. And so that isolation is for people who are already sick. And if you are, then you need to stay separate from other people in your household. And you need to know that you will have to be in your household separate from other people for at least 72 hours after you demonstrate any symptoms. So that's 72 hours, 3 days where you don't have a fever, without taking medication, so that you're not having shortness of breath and things like that. So that's if you're already sick and you need to at least have that amount of time away from people. If you don't have symptoms for 3 days, they're suggesting that you at least stay away from people for a full 7 days from when you first saw a symptom until afterwards. So that's isolation. In quarantine, you are in your house, separated from people, even if you're not sick yet, but you have been close to someone who is sick. So with that, they're actually asking that you stay away from people for 14 days, because there could be some time before you actually get sick, then some time when you are sick, and a little bit of time after you're sick to stay away from people. So quarantine is really focusing on those individuals who were around people who were sick, who haven't had symptoms yet, but they anticipate that they will. So when you are in quarantine or you're in isolation and something gets pretty desperate so that you can't breathe very well, for instance, then that is the time that you would call your doctor for more defined medical assistance. And so, of course, they are asking that you not just go to an emergency room, but you do call a doctor first and try to figure out what your next steps would be. So, the CDC, I said, has changed their perspective since Friday. So only a few days. Things are moving so quickly. And now they are suggesting that people wear masks when they are in public, and that those masks will help for an individual like myself to spread germs to someone else. We don't want to spread the virus, which is typically spread through moisture from our mouth, from droplets, and so or by touching something that those droplets have touched. So the masks will help in that regard. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't also keep that 6-foot distance. You should, but you want to try to wear the masks. And everybody is, of course, now going to be struggling to find masks. It's hard to find masks in the stores right now. Almost impossible to find them, whether it's on Amazon or in a store that you walk into. And so a lot of people are trying to learn how to make them. And so I'm going to go over a little bit of that today. And we're not talking the medical grade mask. Those masks are being saved. If they are available in stores, they're being saved for medical professionals. And if you're going to make something at home, then it's not going to be to that level. Now, a lot of people don't have a sewing machine, they don't have a lot of materials at home, they may not even have needles and threads. So different types of materials that would be helpful for that. So I'm just going to go over a quick way to make some masks. There's some really great websites. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there how to make masks. I know 9 News had somebody making a mask without any thread or anything, just using shoelaces recently. So there's lots of places that you can get information. But I think that most of us who are going to try to make the masks have to MacGyver it a little bit and come up with some new ways to make this happen. So I was scrounging around my house looking for materials, and I did find some bandanas that I had. But if I didn't have a bandana, I was searching for some other things here. So, one of these big bandanas I have. So this bandana, which is a regular size one, could actually turn into at least 4 masks. So I tried that. But I also, and I'm not sure why I have this, but I also had a handkerchief that could turn into probably 4 masks. And if you don't have something like that, you could use a napkin. So what better time to use your napkins than for a special needs project? And if you don't have that, you could use sheets, you could use different clothing. So you just want to try to have a fabric that is tightly knit, so there's not a lot of chance for particles to pass freely in and out. And you want at least 2 pieces of fabric. So I do happen to have a sewing machine, a needle, and thread. So I cut the bandana into two pieces first. I happen to have some lining material that was actually a sheet that I used to line something else a while back. I had two different colors. Now, a lot of times they say to have two different colors like this so that you can have one that you know is the side that faces your mouth as germs and things are coming out. Moisture is coming out, and the other side is public facing. But it doesn't make any difference. If you don't have lining, you could use a bandana and just fold it in half like this, and then continue from there. Now, there's different sizes and different patterns out there. I chose about a 9 by 9 inch square that we could pull together. And I did one white and one with the bandana color. What you do is that you stitch around the outside. Of course, it helps if it's kind of all together. But you stitch around the outside about 1/4 of an inch to the end. So you're stitching around the 1/4 of an inch all the way around, except for about 3 inches at the top. So if you had this, you'd be stitching like this all the way around, stitching here so that you had this opening at the top. Now, before you actually do the stitching, you want to figure out what your tie will be. Now, they recommend that you could use elastic band. I just happen to have a little bit of elastic. It's hard to find right now. So you could use that. You can use bias tape was another thing that they talked about that you could use for strings, either to tie around your head like that or to loop around your ear. I'm going to show you the ear kind today. If you don't have those things, people talk about hair bands or even shoelaces. There's all kinds of things that you can use. As I said, we're going to kind of MacGyver whatever we can, because the idea is to have something over your mouth, not to look like like you're going to be styling at all. But anyway, so when you're going around here, if you decide that this is the top, for instance, you are going to use some kind of a pin to hold your pieces together before you sew. And if you don't have a sewing machine, you can just use a regular needle and thread like that. But you're going to be flipping this inside out. So when you're doing this, you actually put elastic on the very corner. So you put elastic on the corner, and that will, when you go through and stitch it, you'll be stitching that into place. And as you go down the side of the material, at the very other end, you will stitch the rubber band in place again at the other corner. So we'll have inside of this, there'll be a rubber band that's circular, that's stitched at both corners of the fabric. So you'll do that on both sides as you're stitching around. And then once you get that stitched, you are going to flip the material inside out. So what that does, if you're not used to sewing, is that you'll have some nice seams all the way around the outside. You won't have all this frayed material, and the plastic or the elastic, whatever you're using in that case, will be coming out on each of the corners. So it'll be like a loop on each of the corners. Then one of the things that I did with mine is that I also, because this is my finished product, not amazing, but I did pleats. So if you do pleats, you have a big piece of fabric, and once this is sewed, you're going to just do a pleat like that, and then another pleat that's just like that below that you'll pin, and then you'll go through and you will stitch it again. The pleats are good because when you actually put this on over your nose, it'll expand. So again, it's not gorgeous, but it will expand, and you want it to go over your nose and over your mouth like this. And so that's what will help you to be safe while you're walking out in front of friends. We can go over this a lot more later, but that's a very quick way. On 9 News, they had one of the presentations that they showed was someone who made the mask with just shoelaces and fabric without any sewing whatsoever. So that could also be good. I was also thinking that there's this thing called Stitch Fix, which is like a double back tape almost that you iron on. You could use that if you don't have a sewing machine or needle or thread. And certainly if you don't have any material, if you don't have anything that you think you can cut up, use a bandana just tying it around your head, or use a scarf that you tie around your head. Just do something to cover up your nose and your mouth. I'm willing to humiliate myself on live stream so that you can see what this would look like, even though it's not great. But what I really want to do is I think everybody could come up with their own masks, and I am encouraging you to send us a picture of the mask that you get together. I think it would be really fun to see some of the creation out there. I know there's a lot of people who are very talented in this way, so send us some pictures and we can figure out what type of styles we might be able to all assume ourselves. So just a whole lot of fun. Let's try to interact and let us know how you're doing in terms of your face mask. Please try to use these when you are around people. If you're in the grocery store or if you're in a place where there are more people. Most people are following the social distance guidelines, but not everybody. So please be careful for yourself and for other people to wear those masks if possible. Now we're close to the end, and I always do some kind of a book review, and this is a little bit different because this is our do-it-yourself session. So my book review is going to be your book. I'm suggesting that you get any old notebook and that you start journaling, because your life and the reflections that you have during this time will not only be great for you to read later, but it will give you really good insight into, what are the things that really help you out and what are the things that are stressful for you. And it's good for self-learning down the road. So journaling is always good, but I think especially in a time like this where it's pretty tumultuous, it might be beneficial for you. So please consider writing your own book, your own story during this time that you are at home. Couple more things. Last time, or one of the last times that I talked with you, I suggested as an anxiety reducing method that you only watch the news or read or listen to the news a couple times a day, once in the morning and once at night. And during a phone call with one of my friends this weekend, she said, I've been trying to follow your advice, but I think you should be more specific, because when I watch the news in the morning, I then watch it for 4 hours. And then I take a break, and then I watch it for 4 more hours. So obviously that is not what I meant. So I would recommend that you watch the news for just a little while in the morning and a little while at night, and not perseverate all day long about it, because it really could drive you crazy to be listening and being bombarded with all this information all day long. It's just way too much for any of us to handle that. There's also a website that I think might be helpful in terms of that anxiety reduction. It's called 10%.com is the address, 10%.com, and the percent is spelled out, so TENPERCENT. And it's the name of it actually is the 10% Happier blog, and there's just lots of different resources and information on there to help you work through some of these issues and some of these things that might be plaguing you at this time. There's also a daily meditation on there that is good for beginners to experts, so might be a good way for you to also lighten up your day besides coming to visit with us at this Facebook Live show. Just a quick reminder that if you are experiencing food insecurity, if you do have some special needs at this point, please let us know at info@hopecommunities.org. We'll see what we could do to help. And always know that there is always information available for you that is on our website, hopecommunities.org. So as we get ready to leave today, just a reminder, please send me pictures of your face mask. I really want to see that. Please send us questions and please be well. It's been great connecting with you, and I hope that you come back for our Wednesday session at 3 o'clock. Thanks so much. Bye.